What's worthwhile? Considering what we consume, believe, say, and do towards peace of mind, vitality of body, and joy of spirit. I'm Ramsey Zimmerman. Here's some more healthy living, motivation, and discussion.
I think a lot of us are actually trying to find a way of living outside of that cultural, dominative, patriarchal force. And we're like, hey, we're like we want to live purposeful lives, do meaningful work. We want to show up in our marriages. We want to be, healthy, loving, present fathers. And we really don't have any good models on how to do that. So how about we show up together and hold each other and support one another and cultivating that. And there's something about the idea of like the men's work that is different, like beyond maybe coaching, where there isn't a real like agenda. There's a real willingness for like the truth of our experience to just be met as it is and not manipulated.
Hey there, it's Ramsey here. That was Jason Blydell. I met Jason a few months back at the men's retreat I attended at Joshua Tree. What struck me about Jason is that you look at him and you see this impressive guy with perfect lines and edges, but when I got to know him a bit, I realized there is way more going on behind that chiseled brow. Jason is himself a men's coach, a father of 4 young kids, an athlete, and a Marine. It was fun catching up with him, and we had a great conversation about what guys really think and feel below the surface, what men's work is all about, and how it breaks down the ineffective paradigms most prevalent today. I think you will get a lot out of this discussion too. Let's get started. Hey, Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ramsey. Yeah, man, it's a beautiful day here. How are you?
Good. It is so great to talk to you again. We met at the Meld Prime men's retreat in Joshua Tree earlier this year, and we had some time to hang out. I felt like we, got off on the right foot to be friends, and I'm just really glad that you took the time to come and hang out with me some more, and we could talk a bit more on the podcast. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, right on. I'm glad to be here, and I've really enjoyed staying connected with some of the guys from that trip. It's super cool to keep that experience alive.
Yeah, totally. So I got an immediate sense of you as like well put together, clean cut leader. And I wonder, like, how did you come by that sense of quiet confidence? Like, tell us more about your backstory.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, I grew up in a sports culture. My dad was like a pretty hardcore disciplined guy, like had me training in like 3rd grade, wearing ankle weights to school, like underneath my pants because it would make me run faster. And, playing in the men's league on Thursday night as a kid. And that just became like a very natural way of like orienting toward discipline, learning how to get better and show up. And I naturally just gravitated to, I think, in my community as like organizing sports games every week for like my whole town and bringing people together. And and then I just continued to do that my whole childhood and through high school. I played football and baseball at the Division I level in college. And then I went into the Marine Corps, and that kind of continued to maybe clean me up a bit even more. And I think it's that. And then like maybe the quiet confidence piece is just having been like put to at a really young age, like being able to lead in environments that like where the stakes really mattered, the mission mattered, and what does it take to show up and like get the job done or accomplish the mission, kind of became a way of being, I guess.
And in addition, I think there's like a whole lot more to you under the surface. It's like the quiet confidence, the traditional strong male leadership, like that stuff is awesome, but it's not all there is. There's a lot more to it than that. And I think, through some of the stuff that we were doing at the retreat, we were sort of learning more about, how guys are, have a lot kind of going on underneath and below the surface. So what else you got going on inside of you?
Yeah, like as you were sharing that, what came to mind was when you're like, you bring this quiet confidence. I think there's a lot of that confidence that most of my life, even today at times, still, if I'm not paying attention, is actually like a performance. Like I can be confident anywhere, and I know how to like put that mask on and do what it looks like to be a confident leader. And I think under the surface is the path that I've been on, or the work that I've been up to the last, I don't know, since my son's been born, really like 7 years, almost 8 years now, is realizing how much of that has been a mask, and how much my own, like what is my real authentic leadership? What is confidence actually look like? Like, can I bring the part of me that feels super nervous before I stand up and speak to people, and not like shove that down and just like, suck it down and overcome it basically. Like I could overcome a lot. So I think under the surface is like many years now of like putting an end to that internal war, so that I can get more and more comfortable of like what it's like to just be me and show up with all of the aspects of me that I might not like, or I might feel uncomfortable with, or I think shouldn't be here. And yeah, just to name, like, fatherhood has probably unraveled that pot more than anything, in a messy but really beautiful way of healing and seeing where there was a lot of actual like pain and hurt beneath the surface that needed to be met. Yeah.
Was that difficult for you to do? What was it like? You mentioned 7 years ago is when you sort of started that, and you mentioned, the birth of your son. What was that like? What was sort of the impetus or the sort of realizations that started heading you in that direction?
Yeah, I think the first impetus was like realizing that it was like, I think my son was about 1, and on the surface I had like everything, a beautiful wife, amazing young son, healthy. We were living in San Diego, had a good high paying tech sales job, but like internally it was just like, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I remember just feeling like the walls, and we lived in a little apartment, but the walls like felt like they were like caving in on me. And I think it was that recognition of like, now that I'm a father, like I can't be dishonest. And like the life that I was living was dishonest to who I was and what wanted to like be expressed through me. And, it was everything from doing work that I hated, to recognizing patterns of like numbing out, like using weed, pretty consistently, alcohol more than I needed to be. And it was like, what am I doing, man? I've got this boy here who I want to like teach and show, not even teach, like model what it looks like to be a thriving, human who like just loves life and is passionate about life. And that was the beginning of like, cool, I might want to start becoming that human who leans into what that looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is amazing how having kids will sort of do that for us. I remember when I was first married, we didn't have kids right away, and I remember thinking to myself, I need to grow up first. I need to become a grown up before I have kids. And so then at some point I felt like, okay, I'm a grown up. And then immediately when I had kids, the first thing I did was become a kid again. It was like, I immediately started like, playing with them and being goofy and ridiculous again. And it just seemed like such a paradox.
Mm.
You know, I agree. It's like when we have kids, they really change our perspectives on just about everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. And hearing you say that, I'm kind of like, God damn, I wish I tapped in. I could, that was like, that is, those are the ways that I feel the war inside of me internally, where like, oh man, I've got these four wonderful children running around my backyard and I can't be playful. I
Why do
can't,
you think that is?
like, I think it just points to um, the parts of me that are just like consuming so much energy elsewhere. Um, and hung up on all these things that don't actually matter. And I can't just like let everything go and be with them here now. And yeah, I don't know, like what, like, I think there's just an aspect of that pattern that shows up for me. That's like, um, everything feels like it's work. So even fatherhood is like, oh man, here's another job I have to go do and be good at and perform at a high level. And it's like, well, that's, or you could just like orient toward getting this like beautiful opportunity to be their father, and what would that look like to just be with them and not have to do anything special, not have to like raise them or shape them, but just be really present with them. So yeah, when I notice that, when I notice those things, it just invites me back to like, cool, here's an opportunity to actually like put down your stuff, or maybe like, cool. And, you know, now I've got a better sense of like my process to, kind of unravel things and let some stuff go and move some of that stuff internally so that I can just come back to being with them and soaking up. Your kids are older, right? If I recall.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like college age,
Yeah.
basically.
So like, I know, you know, like it is hard. Like it is not easy to have four kids under 7, and like, I will never have this again. And there's
I will
so
never know what it's like to have 4 kids under 7.
that I could, yeah, it's like I could be like, it's a great thing that you probably don't need to know that. And yeah, like it invites me into a lot of possibility to continuously transform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. In terms of transforming, what was that Joshua Tree retreat like for you? Like, how did you experience it? What did you learn from that?
Yeah. For me, it was, I at that point, I'd already done a lot of group work. I'd been in some really like, you know, healing, transformational coaching type spaces or containers where there was a lot of like depth and openness and beauty, all sorts of goodness, right? But I had never been in a space in person physically yet with all men. Um, and I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is just like being able to like immediately drop my guard and reveal what was true for me, and like the hurt that was bubbling up and the pain that was there, and what it was, who knows why it was bubbling up, I don't know, but I could just let it be there and for it to be met, supported, guided. And then like I just remember like sitting, I don't know if you remember that first like uh kind of circle, and just opening my eyes after, you know, really processing a lot of hurt and looking around and like taking in every single man and seeing other men being like touched by my experience. It would like touch me even more. And yeah, I think I was just really blown away by how beautiful it is to be with a bunch of men, like where we're so deeply present to one another without needing to like change anything or fix anything, to just hold that. Um,
It was.
yeah, yeah, it was just
Yeah,
really
it was a
special.
really. I had never been in a space like that either, where there was 30 of us, sitting
Yeah, there's a lot
around
of
in a
guys, man.
circle.
Yeah,
Typically, when my experience is when I'm in a group of more than about 5 people, I have a lot of difficulty staying, well, a lot of difficulty contributing in any meaningful way. And it's usually because there's feelings of like competition, or there's like people that clearly want to talk more. And so, I'm not going to compete with somebody who just really wants to talk. So I'm just going to let them talk. Or it's like, I have a sense of, there could be anybody in this room, and so that's not a feeling of safety. But, we went to such great lengths in that retreat to create a space of safety and to, break down walls and drop our guard, during the mother of all icebreakers that we did the first night when we got there. So when we were sitting and actually in that circle and literally taking the time to look around in everybody's eyes, and that was an amazing sort of supportive experience. And it's difficult to imagine how you could get that kind of experience in kind of your everyday situations, or meetings, or places where you would normally have 30 people in a room, because there's usually a lot more going on in a room like that, and it's not necessarily all safe.
Yeah. There's like, when you like just remembering like the fact that there was 30 guys there is pretty wild. Like, and how quickly 30 guys can, I think that's what really amazed me, is like how quickly 30 men can slow down and actually be connected to one another. Like how quickly, like a lot of the stuff, I'm sure a lot of us in all sorts of different ways were still armored and protecting, but for the most part, like, within like 2 to 6 hours, if you really think about it, like that first night into the next morning, like there was a real like ability for men to just share what was on their heart and on their mind in a way that could just be met and received. And it was pretty potent. And like you were saying, there was like for 30 people, you'd be like, oh, there's not enough time for anyone to talk or share. But there was like beyond enough time. It actually felt like, which is pretty wild too. Yeah. Like things really slowed down.
Look, we all deal with stress. Stress is not the problem. The problem is that our body's innate stress response is built for physical challenges instead of the mostly mental, emotional, and virtual stresses that we face today. In my book, Stress Response, you'll learn to manage your response to stress in order to reduce anxiety, avoid burnout, and find calm and steady focus. The ebook is available on Amazon and only 99 cents for a limited time. After you download, please don't forget to leave an honest review and rating so that others will find it too. And they encouraged us to connect with each other afterwards. They encouraged us to do, more follow-on work. And what kinds of things have you been doing since then?
Yeah. Well, I got a hike planned with one of the guys from our group in a few weeks, actually, in North Carolina. So pretty stoked on that. So just keeping that relationship and connection alive. He's like 3 hours from me. So I just want to name that because it's like a real commitment to not letting some of these relationships just like die on the vine. It's so easy to happen. And then, I was just really like struck by the potency of men coming together in community and what becomes possible. And I did 2 more retreats, really orienting towards like, what does it mean to be a guide for other men, as we navigate all these different thresholds in our lives that we're navigating, and to bring some shared reverence to like our human experience. And like inside of this work, how do we find our natural expression of, like anyone listening, I don't know, they might have no idea like what men's work is. Most people in my world don't have any clue what the hell men's work is. And honestly, I'm, like I have enough of it now where I'm like, okay, I get it. But it's like, what is actually happening, if we look at it really simply, is like, oh my God, men are coming together. There's a real true connection. There's intimacy. There's like a slowing down, and it's so simple. And there's like a yearning for all of us to want to feel connected, intimate, to feel loved. And that can happen in that shared space so quickly and simply. So it's like, so what I've been up to is kind of like orienting to how do I find my expression of leadership to create that same, to create experiences that allow that to be possible. Like that simple structure. Yeah.
It strikes me that, we talk about men's work, we call this thing called men's work. And I just wonder, what kind of impressions or connotations people take from it, because, the last thing that we want to be is exclusive. It's not that women don't have work to do. It's not that women don't deserve and have the value and need to be together in their spaces and work. And it's not even that we as men want to not have women in our spaces. In fact, it's very much kind of the opposite of that. It seems like oftentimes when we get together as men, we're often talking about the women in our lives and how to serve them better and how to be better men kind of for their benefit. That's not the only things we talk about, but often it seems like it is. And then this other notion of, okay, men's work, is that the sort of, domineering alpha male who wants to take control of everything, or is that the obsequious, kind of man who wants to, do everything that society and his woman, tells him to do? Or is it something in between? Or is it something completely different? What do you think? Talk to me more about this thing called men's work.
Yeah, I mean, that's my experience of it has been like, holy shit, there's a bunch of like really good and beautiful men out in the world who all have like these huge hearts and care deeply about things that matter. And we're all like coming together to find our way back to like, how do we orient towards these things that matter? Like, and we're all in a sense looking for help around all these things that are innately like human, but for men in our culture, like have been completely left by the wayside, like our, capacity to feel our emotions, or to be able to speak authentically to what's true to us without, being, and not needing to perform and look a certain way so you can fit in or whatever. So it's like, we're all actually coming together to look for the same thing. And there's just been this like, to what you're naming, the exact opposite of this, like, alpha male domination. I think a lot of us are actually trying to find a way of living outside of that cultural dominative patriarchal force. And we're like, hey, we're like all like, we want to live purposeful lives, do meaningful work. We want to show up in our marriages. We want to be, healthy, loving, present fathers. And we really don't have any good models on how to do that. So how about we show up together and hold each other and support one another and cultivating that. And because there's something about the idea of like the men's work that is different, a bit different. That's important to name. That's like beyond maybe coaching, where there isn't a real like agenda. There's a real willingness for like the truth of our experience to just be met as it is and not manipulated, I guess.
Right. Because coaching is very much oriented around specific goals, things that people want to accomplish kind of within their life. Right. Yeah. And versus this is more sort of existential.
Yeah, and I think like healthy coaching can do both, right? But there also, it's so easy to get sucked back into like, like another thing to achieve, or that there's actually something wrong, instead of like, no, like this, can you actually feel your life the way it is? And when we do that and we can be with our experience, like there's a natural unfolding of our innate capacity, or what we know is true, or how we want to navigate something beyond, like, I guess I would say, like the intensity of my own programming, my own parts that are so strong and can just be like, let down. And yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm getting more personally involved with group work. I've joined a weekly men's group online to do that, and I've also am now facilitating a weekly in-person group, which is not just men, it's men and women, around holistic health. And I've done a lot of group facilitation in the past, but it's always been in a business setting. So, coming into a business group or running a meeting or doing strategic planning. This is a bit of a new thing for me, leading a kind of a group in this format. So, I'm thinking about things like leadership and, wondering what kind of thoughts or advice you might have for me, both as I, participate in this weekly group online and also as I facilitate this other in-person group.
Yeah. Well, one, that's amazing, man. Congrats on leading into all that. And yeah, stepping into all those spaces feels exciting.
Thanks,
And the
man.
thing that comes up for me is like how powerful it can be. Like there's this, I think, an idea that I've always been present to, like, especially in the military, is like, we've got to know everything, like the tactics, the strategy, and how beautiful it can be to like step into leadership, really not knowing how the hell like how this is going to go or what's going to work, and like to really be open in that, and to be willing to share, like, hey, I'm trying something new, or like our capacity to lean into something, to really not know, to own that, and to be someone who's willing to just like still go for it, to commit and like put it all out on the table and be like, oh, cool. And I can clean up any mess that I make. I have the capacity to repair, is so much more potent than like needing to be someone who like does it right or gets it right, or like it goes perfect the first time. Like people, like my sense is that what people are actually craving, what men are actually craving, is for like to be led by men who are just real like them. Like
Yeah.
they haven't like actually figured it out, or they don't actually like have it all together, because that's not actually true or real for any of us. Like we're all humans. Like, yeah, we can
Well,
be like,
and nothing ever goes completely to plan or right the first time, if or the second or any time.
yeah, yeah. So it's
And
like
you
you
never
surrender to
know,
that
you
truth.
never know everything,
Yeah.
and so you can pretend like you know everything, and sometimes you can fake it and get away with it, but that's usually that, well, that has a great potential to blow up in your face, claiming that you know everything.
Yeah. Blow up in your face. And I believe that it's also like felt as like
Uh-huh.
an incoherence in the space. Like when I'm here with Ramsey leading from that place, something feels off. I might not be able, as a man in that group, like I might not be able to name, like most people wouldn't name it, or couldn't name what they're feeling specifically, but there's like, it would actually be felt as like a dissonance.
Sure, yeah, because
Yeah.
it wouldn't be true. It wouldn't be real.
Yeah.
And people can sense truth.
People sense it. And yeah, so that goes back to like what I was saying around like how beautiful it is for somebody to just show up and like be their messy, beautiful self who does not have it all figured out. But also like that doesn't mean we can't be like, hey man, I got a great plan. I showed up. I'm excited about it. And like 5 minutes in, be like, oh God, this does not feel like it's going well. Like being able to check in and tune in and like really work inside of like the present moment experience. Like how cool is that to like model that possibility for people?
Yeah. There's a lot to just being present and staying present and really sort of paying attention and trying to lock in on what people are really saying and also what their body is expressing and figuring out kind of the story behind the story, understanding. And I guess we talk a lot about creating a container and holding space, so creating a container meaning the place and the situation and the kind of ground rules and agreements into which we have a meeting or a discussion. And then even if somebody says something weird, even if they have a strong reaction, even if it seems like things are going sideways, stay in it with them and sort of work through it and observe it and help the person to have that experience. It's a physical, mental, spiritual experience, and having that experience with another person in relationship allows someone to have it be a full, have it develop, and actually they can experience that instead of denying it or pushing it down or pretending like it didn't happen or moving on to the next thing, because then it's just unresolved.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Like as I'm listening to you talk about that whole, I'm just like, oh yeah, like this is the potency or the power of like when we come together and just be honest. Like I'm honest with what I'm feeling and thinking and noticing, and you're honest with what you're feeling, thinking, and noticing. And like that gets to stay in the space and doesn't need to be made wrong or change. And we can explore that. And like, we don't need to be, yeah. And like, I think it's like, there's an aspect of, culturally for men, like we're moving at such a fast, like dysregulation in men, high achievement or like the high performance aspect is like, it almost feels like something's falling apart as soon as we slow down and stay with like what's here. And it's like, oh yeah, no, we can actually stay safe and stay right here and not go anywhere. And this matters. Right. Why does it matter? I don't know. Let's find out. Yeah.
I've heard you mention previously how important is the capacity to choose. Tell me more about that. What do you mean by that, and why is it so important for people to be able to make choices and to actively choose?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I've been curious about this myself lately, and I think like deep down, there's a yearning for all of us to want to know that we have the capacity to choose how we navigate life, and that choose how we navigate life, and from that place we can actually create the things that we want in our lives, and to be able to create the experiences we want, the material success, whatever it looks like, whatever the things to be able to create the beautiful life we want with our family, as a dad, as a husband, in our marriage. Like we want to know that we can create that, and to create that, it starts with our ability to choose. How do I start to make choices that lead to that experience? So like, if I want to have a loving and intimate marriage, like how can I catch myself and notice the ways that I'm reacting or choosing that don't actually orient me towards creating that? And I think like for a lot of us, it's like, I know for me, like it became a problem. Like, holy shit, I can't, it feels like I can't choose to be this way with my kids certain times, or I can't put down this story about how to make more money in my business, and how natural that is. I think like all these things in our life are just pointing to, are just actually all the things we're fighting and resisting and can't stand about our life are just doorways into, these are actually doorways into what it looks like to have access to start to choose again. Um, and yeah, I'll pause here for
It
a second.
seems like that is the first aspect of regaining some kind of control. Everybody wants to have at least a certain amount of control. We certainly want to have control over our own selves. In certain situations, you want to have more control over a larger situation. But the first ability to have any form of self-control or autonomy or agency is to be able to make a decision. Whether or not you even have an action tied to that decision, the first thing that you need to do in that case is actually make a conscious decision about even what it is that you want or that you think you might ask for or that you might do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can keep peeling layers on that all day long. Cause like, okay, what happens when someone has a part of them that doesn't know what they want and feels like that's not true? And then, so where do we go? And this is where I start to look at like choices is simple, but it's actually complex in the sense of we got to know like what layer to work at. So like, if I'm struggling to make these choices about how I want to show up as a dad or how I want to lead my business when things get tense and there's friction, I have to understand like where I'm actually blocked. So like layer one would be like nervous system capacity. So a lot of the work we did on our trip to Joshua Tree, it was like, can my body actually hold this? And how do I even like, before anything can shift, like, does my system have enough regulation for change to even be possible? So a lot of people are like beating themselves up and we're struggling and we're creating shame loops because we're not making the choices we want, but we can't get there yet. Like we have to make the choice to like, hey, I'm actually going to choose to slow down and attune to my nervous system. And what does that look like to take care of my
Or I'm
body?
going to choose to, eat eat a healthy snack versus, go binge something else. Or I'm going to choose to drink a glass of water instead of another couple more beers.
Yeah.
Those are choices that many of us struggle with in the moment, right? Even though we know which would be better. And then each time that we make a good decision in that capacity, it improves our base level of function and it gives us some momentum. And then those choices are actually potentially easier to make the right decisions the next time.
Yeah. Yeah. What you just named is like the distinction I use is like intellectual awareness does not equal embodied knowing.
Yeah.
And like a lot of us have that intellectual, we can like look at our patterns, and a lot of us have done enough work to like analyze some things and, oh yeah, I know I shouldn't have another beer. I know I should eat. Ramsey told me like all the things that I need to eat. He gave me this whole amazing program that I paid all this money for, but embodied knowing is the ability to feel it arriving in real time and have like a moment of genuine choice before that old pattern, that wiring that's so deep takes over and grabs the beer or the chips or whatever, or yells at our kids. And very like many of us have done that first layer, but most of us haven't built that second layer. And the second is what I think like where change is what it actually is required for like sustainable change to occur, where we start to feel it arrive and we start to understand, how do I work across all these different layers?
What is that second layer and how do you build it?
Yeah. So the second layer I would say is relational safety. So like, is it safe to be seen here when I fall short? So if it's just Ramsey on my own, I eat the chips and I fell short, and now I'm in a pattern of like critique and in a shame loop, and I just spiral. And the setbacks just like kind of keep me in the same loop. Where I pull away from support when I actually need it most. So if there's this relational safety is built, now I can be met with someone who can meet my experience in a way that it's never been met before. Where it's like, hey man, it's falling off is okay. They can still be met with the warmth. They can feel what it feels like to be curious about that, for it to be accepted, for them not to be shamed. And it's like, wow, this is really potent. So that relational field starts to become their own internal field. They start to learn like what they learn in relationship, what they can apply to themselves in their own relationship to themselves. Which is really a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is important and profound, because in a lot of ways, the primary sort of connection or interaction that many people have today is through things like social media. And often on social media, we're going to extremes, right? We're either bragging about how great our thing went, or, you know, how cute our kids are, or else we're complaining viciously about what somebody else is doing that we don't like.
Yeah.
You know, but here, like I'm hearing you describe a space where people are, you know, they might send a note out and be like, you know what, I just ate another bag of chips and I don't even know why.
Yeah.
But I just did it.
Yeah. I had a mentor who, and inside of a group container of a lot of people I actually didn't really know that well, where I celebrated every time I got angry at my kids, and everyone would send out emojis. And it was like, this is weird and kind of effed up, right? I'm like, what, dude? Like,
yeah,
this is terrible. But it really taught me how to embrace my anger as it being okay. Like, if that can't be accepted, it can never actually transform. Because as long as like if the shame follows the falling off, and I feel the need to perform competence in even the relationships where people are supporting me, there's no mechanism for real change to occur. So if I could meet myself and share with others like this genuine sense of, and it be met without judgment, then I was like, wow, it actually is okay. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. I'm not a terrible person. And I think that's the reality, I think, of change, where, you know, someone might come by my house, depending on most days, but most of the time, if you witness me, like, you'd be like, wow, you're a good dad, man. Like, you speak to your kids in like a really loving way. And I can tell you're like, you're being patient and gentle, but it's taken so many reps, so many times I've fell down, that if I didn't allow that to be the process, like I'd still be in that internal war. And it still happens. So it is an endless process. You know, my youngest is 2, and I'm like, oh, I forgot what it was like to have a 2-year-old. And I'm like, twisted up.
Yeah, you're in the thick of it. You're still in the thick of it.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, and then I got a puppy, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's make this even more fun.
Oh yeah, whole nother level. Well, no, see, when you get to the point where, you know, the puppy can change the diapers, you know, then you'll be in good shape.
Yeah,
know?
I'm working on that, man. We're in layer 4 there. I'll let you know how it goes.
Oh man. Well, hey, if folks wanted to learn more about what you do as a coach and just get in touch with you as a person, like, where would they go to learn more, and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn, probably really easily, Jason Blydell, or my website is www.gonebeyond.co. And yeah, and my email is just jason.blydell@gmail.com. So yeah, you can just reach out to me there. Probably the easiest way.
Jason, it was so much fun to hang out with you for a little while today, and let's keep in touch. And thanks for all of your insights. It's good and helpful for me, and I know it'll be helpful for our listeners too.
Yeah, right on, man. Thanks, Ramsey. Appreciate you. Glad to be
Yep.
here.
Ready for more? Visit what'sworthwhile.net to listen to podcast episodes, master your response to stress by reading my book, Stress Response, available through Amazon, or to get better before burnout sets in by requesting the free guide. Regardless of where you are in your journey, I'd love to hear from you and talk about how we might move forward together. Please contact me, Ramsey Zimmerman, through the website or on social media like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or X. Thanks.